Welcome back to Apollo. Today, we'll be taking a look at r/Today I F'd Up. Today I f'd up by thinking divorce was an April Fool's gag. So here it goes. Yesterday, I got a group text from my wife, Sarah's side of the family, stating there was an emergency family meeting happening that night over dinner at my mother-in-law Barb's house. I immediately had April Fool's spidey senses starting to tingle, but we haven't all got together since Christmas, so I overlooked it and said we, my wife and I, were in. We were the last to arrive, and it was pretty somber when we walked in. We all sat down at the table, and my wife's brother, Tim, informed the family that his wife, Ashley, has been having an affair, and they are divorcing. The affair was with a longtime close family friend, Chris, who lived a block away. Chris's wife, Jen, had caught them when she came home early one day last week and broke the news to my brother-in-law, Tim. Both families have been friends for years. They live less than a block away from each other. They each have been married for 15 plus years, have 4 kids right around the same age. Honestly, I have always thought both of them were picture-perfect families. Hell, all 4 of them and their kids were at our house 2 weeks ago for a barbecue. Anyways, after airing a lot of dirty laundry and their plans to divorce, how it could affect future family functions, and opening it up to the group of any questions, there was silence. I broke the silence with laughter and a slow clap, saying this was the best April Fool's gag I've ever seen, but I wasn't falling for it. I told Ashley, and especially Tim, they need to consider going into theater. Their performances were top-notch, and tears seemed genuine. Being the newest member of the family, my wife and I married 6 months ago, this was probably not the best thing to say in hindsight. I probably should not have said anything. Everyone in the room looked horrified. My mother-in-law, who had been crying the entire time, lost all composure. She left the room in hysterics and did not return before we left. Tim just shook his head, and his cheating wife actually let out a brief chuckle before calling me out for being a dumbass for thinking this was a ruse, then berating me for being so insensitive. The rest of the family sat in silence, shaking their heads, as my wife berated me for trying to make a joke out of a serious situation. I am still dumbfounded. In hindsight, I probably should have sat in silence, but I honestly still feel like I was calling out an April Fool's gag. Today I f'd up by telling my girlfriend I knew she cheated on me. This happened approximately 6 years ago. I was laughing about it with my friend today, who recommended that I post it here. So, flashback to undergrad. Things are good, and I just started dating this beautiful girl that I had met in class. I was enamored with her, shocked that I loved her so fast, and amazed that she even wanted to date me. The first months are amazing. We can't keep our hands off each other, and never seem to be sick of each other's company. After a few months into our relationship, I started to notice some concerning symptoms. As you can probably hypothesize, when I peed, it burned. At first, I just assumed it must have been something weird with my diet. To be sure, I decided to stop taking creatine, just in case. But as time went on, a few days later, the burning became unbearable. I would literally be struggling to stand while I peed because the pain was so intense. After, I would literally lay in my bed in the fetal position until the pain subsided. It was bad. Well, at this point, I was no longer convinced that my diet was causing the symptoms. No, it had to be what I thought unfathomable. My girlfriend must have cheated on me. I hadn't been with anyone else. I hadn't been with anyone else since I began pursuing her, months before we became exclusive. I was shocked. Things seemed so perfect. She seemed like such a good person. Where had I gone wrong? The thought made my blood boil, until I outright confronted her. I told her I knew she must have been unfaithful because of my symptoms, and asked her if she had similar symptoms. She told me no. I demanded that she come with me to a clinic, that we both take a test and share our results. She said sure. Looking back at this, I feel like a complete dick. We agreed that we would go the next day. The same night I confronted my girlfriend, my roommate's girlfriend came over to stay at our place. She was being nice and went to do some dishes for us. Around this time, my roommates and I had just moved into a new house. In the process, all our belongings got shuffled around. As she went to get some dishwashing pods, she exclaimed, "Why are you guys washing your dishes with laundry detergent?" I heard that, and it all clicked. Holy sh*. I've been pissing out bleach? I instantly felt ashamed and immediately apologized to my girlfriend. She took it really well, laughed at the situation, and we forgot about it. Sure enough, a few days later, after our dishes and cups were no longer saturated with bleach residue, my symptoms disappeared. Today I fed up by lying about an allergy at a restaurant and ending up in the emergency room. I met this girl on Tinder, and we really hit it off. I asked her out on a date to a cozy restaurant in our small town, Gainesville, Florida. I had to take the bus there. My moped broke down last week, which is another story of its own, and she lived close to the restaurant, so it was convenient. The date was going okay. It was kind of awkward at first because we just talked about the cold weather for 5 minutes, so I decided to break the tension. A while ago, I heard about a life pro tip where if you order french fries at a restaurant without salt, they have to make a fresh batch for you. I've been to this restaurant before, and the guac is really good on some days and okay on other days. When the waitress came in, we ordered chips and guac. I then asked the waitress, "Does the guac have onions?" To which she responded, "Yes, it does." I then proceeded to tell her, "I have an extremely severe allergy to onions. Can we get guac with no onions?" I told her I have an extremely severe allergy, so she doesn't just take the guac they currently have and remove the onions. This forces them to make a fresh batch from scratch. After the waitress left, my date asked me, "Are you really allergic?" To which I said, "No, but this way we get fresh guac." She was pretty impressed, like, "Damn, I'm stealing this one." When the guac came in, I asked her to give us onions on the side for my date. The rest of the date went well. We ordered some drinks first and then food later. What I forgot to do when I was ordering food was to tell her not to put any onions in my food. When I got my dish, I took about 2 to 3 bites, and the waitress came running to me frantically saying that there are onions in the food. She thought it was her fault for not mentioning it to the chefs. I didn't know how to react, so I just kind of dropped the food from my mouth and into the plate. Her superior walks in during the time and asks if everything is okay, so I tell him that I forgot to mention not to put onions and that I have a severe allergy. The first thing the manager does is apologize profusely and then ask if he should call an ambulance. Side note, I don't have any allergies at all, and neither does anyone in my family or any of my friends. I have no idea what a severe allergic response looks like, but I know that it swells up your face, and for some reason, I thought it makes you cough a lot. I don't know why I thought that. Cut scene to now. I start kind of coughing, but assure him that everything is going to be fine. I tell him, I barely got any onions in the bite. My date at this time went from kind of giggling a bit when the waitress came in to just straight up serious after all the attention just turned to us. I told them not to worry about calling an ambulance, and that I'm okay enough to go to the emergency room myself. I asked for the check, but they insisted on me not paying. Not like we ate anyway, but I still left a $20 bill for the waitress, and assured her and the manager that it was only my fault and not the waitress's fault at all. After leaving, my date was half what the and half laughing at the stupidity of this whole thing. I shot my shot and asked her if she'd just like to grab pizza over at her place, but she said she has to study. Now, it is important to note that the bus stop where I grabbed my bus to go home is right opposite the restaurant. I'm sitting there looking at cats fetching stuff on Reddit when the supervisor pulls up in his car at the stop. He thinks that I am taking the bus to the emergency room. He kept insisting that he drop me to the emergency room. He felt responsible and didn't want anything to happen to me. I finally gave up and told him, okay. In my head, I thought I'd just let him drop me there and then I'll take an Uber back home. However, we get there, and he wants to come in to make sure everything is okay. I'm like, hey man, trust me. I'm okay. Nothing is going to happen to me. You can leave. It was so awkward. We were parked, and he kept asking if I'm sure, and I'm like, yes, I'm sure. Don't worry. Please leave. You don't have to come in with me. At the end, he said he'd just walk in, use the restroom, and leave. We walk in the emergency room, and I'm the only person there. Great. I had to walk to the nurse and tell her I might be having a slight allergic reaction. Supervisor uses the restroom and asks again if everything is fine, and I'm like, yes, everything is going to be okay. Thank you so much for everything. He gives me his number and tells me to inform him once I'm out. Here I am, a healthy 25-year-old adult, having to pay $500 to visit a emergency room for no reason. Another nurse came up to me to take my vitals, and the doctor asked what was wrong, and I had to sheepishly tell him, I think I might have been having an allergic reaction. He says, "Are you allergic to anything?" And I go, "No." He gave me a Benadryl and sent me out. I then spent another $25 to Uber home. I told what happened to my friend, and she said I was the worst kind of. I learned my lesson, and will never pretend to have an allergy again.